So today we are going to learn the strategic capacity planning. Under this video, I'm going to cover what is capacity planning, then considerations in capacity planning, capacity flexibility, and how we are going to analyze in capacity planning. So let's see what is strategic capacity planning. Capacity refers to a systems of potential for producing goods and delivering service over specific time interval, which means in an organization, the ability to produce goods or services within a specific time period is decided through this strategic capacity plan. So potential means the ability. And here we are focusing on a specific time interval, not for a foreseeable future. So here the capacity needs include equipment, space, and employee skills. Equipment means the machineries, tools which you are going to use for production. Space means the location or the factory. And employee skills may be skilled and unskilled employees, knowledge, ability, and talents. Strategic capacity planning is an approach for determining the overall capacity level of capital intensive resources, including facilities, equipment, and overall labor forces. So here you can see it is an approach for what? To determine the overall capacity level. And here the overall capacity include the resources such as facilities. Facilities means the factory, then the equipment as well as the overall labor forces. So overall labor forces include the employee skills. So you have to remember this definition. In this definition, please highlight the resources, including facilities, equipment, and labor forces. So this is the thing which are going to decided by the strategic capacity planning. We are planning to determine the facilities, equipment, and labor forces in an organization. So in the organization, there are three types of organizational capacities. First one is design capacity. Second one is effective capacity. And the third one is the actual capacity. Let's see what is design capacity. This is the highest possible output rate for service capacity. An organization, processes, or facility is designed for under ideal conditions. Ideal conditions means we are expecting everything will be perfect. There won't be any errors. There won't be any issues. Everything is perfect under ideal condition. If everything goes in perfect, we are assuming the highest possible output rate for the operations. That is known as the design capacity. This does not take into account the real world factors. We know that in real world, there may be certain issues, such as equipment failures may be there. Sometimes scheduled maintenance of the machines may not be done at the particular time. Sometimes employees may take breaks. Sometimes idle time may be there. So they are not going to take into account these real world factors. Now let's see the next one. That is effective capacity. This is the maximum capacity that can be achieved under real-world operating conditions. It takes into account factors that decrease the operational efficiency. We know that in the real world, nothing is perfect. Everything is unpredictable. So they are going to take into account those factors such as there may be damages in the equipment. So they have to maintain that. The product quality issues may be there. We know that we can't maintain the quality itself. Sometimes there may be issues in the quality and operational inefficiencies may be there. So they have to take new employees. So the skill turnover and the learning rate may be different. So they are going to take into account all the real world operating conditions in the effective capacity. And what can be achieved in the maximum level when they are taking into account those conditions. That is what the effective capacity. Now let's see the actual capacity. This is the level of capacity that is currently being achieved, which can be less than the effective capacity due to additional inefficiencies, mistakes, or disruptions. So in the actual condition, right, at present, how much we can achieve? This may be less than the effective capacity, because in the effective capacity, even though we are going to take into the consideration of real world operating conditions, we are taking the maximum output. However, here we are going to face the truth itself. We are not going to be too optimistic here in the actual capacity, because there may be additional inefficiencies. There may be some more mistakes. There may be disruptions in the operational flow. Because of that, actual capacity may be lesser than the effective capacity. This represents what is truly produced or service level truly provided. Now let's see what are the objectives of strategic capacity planning. The goal of capacity planning of an organization is to achieve a match between long-term capabilities and long-term demand. So, in the long run, what are they capable of? And what is the market demand? Whether they can match them. Organization can produce 1,000, but market demand 1,200. So whether they are able to match that capabilities and demand through this strategic planning. So that is the main goal. And the overall objective of strategic capacity planning is to reach an optimum level where the production capabilities meet demand. So they are going to plan to reach at the optimum level of satisfaction these two sides of the equation. One side is capability, one side is demand. So they are going to balance between this through the strategic capacity planning. If the production capabilities are not meet demand, so if they fail to meet the demand, then high cost may be there. There may be strain on resources. There may be constraints on resources. And they may lose the customers as a result. So if they are not going to meet the demand, then what they have to do? They have to purchase or they have to outsource it with a higher price. Then it's involved high cost. So if there are constraints on resources, then what they are going to do? Then the customer loyalty or the customer faith may be lost. So these are the negative consequences if they are failed to do the strategic capacity plan. Now let's see what are the importance of capacity decisions. So we have to make decisions. Now what are the importance of this? First one, these capacity decisions impact the ability to meet future demand. At the same time, these capacity decisions may affect the operating cost and it will determine majority of the initial cost as well. So you know that when an organization going to do the facility locations, then they are going to do the facilities and other planning. It will determine how much they have to spend initially. It involves long-term commitments. So to maintain the balance between the capacity and long-term demand, they have to maintain a sustainable balance. Therefore, these decisions are really important with regard to that. And it affects competitiveness. If we lose the customers as a result of our failures in the strategic capacity planning, it may affect the competitiveness. So customers decide and they have faith for our products. What will happen if we are failed to support or supply the particular products? Then customers may shift for the competitors. If customers may shift for the competitors, then it's difficult to build up the current organizational demand in a sustainable manner. And it affects ease of management. Ease means easy. And to maintain easily the labor force, management, planning purpose, everything, then they have to maintain strong decision-making power. So this strong decision-making power comes from the strategic capacity planning. And globalization adds complexity. So we know that now we are going to live in a globalized business environment. So in the globalized business environment, what is happening in the other country may have a significant impact on Sri Lanka as well. Just imagine the war, civil wars in Russia, Ukraine, and civil war in Israel and Palestine. What will happen? Our oil prices are significantly go up as a result. So if we haven't predicted through the strategic capacity planning, what will happen? We have to pay huge sum of cost for the oil, for gas, as well as other relevant raw materials. And it impact on long-range planning as well. So these are the importance of strategic capacity decisions. And if they ask you to write the advantages of strategic capacity planning, you can write this as well. Now let's see what are the types of capacity planning. The first one is resource capacity planning. Resource capacity planning at the higher level simply a calculation of number of employees multiplied by expected billable hours available in a given week, which means resource capacity planning fully focus on the number of employees labor hours. And here we are just going to consider the labor hours which can be billable, which can be given through a price. If we cannot assign a price for the particular labor hour, we are not going to take into consideration. If an organization have an expert engineer, that particular engineer's salary is depend on the number of hours into the particular number of engineers. Even though he is high skilled or low skilled, if we can't decide a price, we are not going to take it into the consideration. We are just going to take into the consideration which we are going to pay money. Project capacity planning. Project managers estimate the amount of time their assigned team can work in a given time frame to balance workload against project delivery milestones. So here the project capacity planning is with the project managers. So they are going to focus what is the time frame and what are the workloads and what are the time periods we have to fulfill. So this is done by project capacity planning. So we can use network diagrams, Gantt charts for those things. Then team capacity planning. This type is useful for groups that typically operate or work together. Tracking and forecasting at a team level is useful for project managers to take a whole person look at the group. So here, rather than planning individually, we are planning as a group. What is the plan of the marketing team? What is the plan of the HR team? So we are going to focus, we are going to track each and every details as a team capacity plan. One is HR capacity planning. This is similar to resource planning but conducted by an HR group that may take into consideration other factors around professional development, the ability to hire and onboard new staff, and the budget for new hires when determining the capacity. So HR capacity planning, since you have done HRM in the second year, first semester, you may have noted that HR capacity planning play a significant role in an organization. So organization, one of the main pillar is the human resource. So they have to focus how we are going to hire employees, what are the orientation program, how we are going to train the new staff, what are the professional developments and budget and everything they have to focus on the HR capacity plan. Now let's see the capacity planning techniques. First one is we are going to use trend analysis. The trend analysis is one of the time series analysis which involves tracking historical data to identify trends and patterns. Then the next one is resource utilization. These techniques focus on measuring and analyzing the utilization of existing resources to determine how efficiently they are allocated and implemented. So here we are going to focus whether they have uses the resources efficiently and effectively. Next one is scenario planning. This technique involves creating multiple scenarios based on different possible outcomes and assessing the likelihood and potential impact of each scenario. In the scenario planning, we are assuming different scenarios. So, based on these scenarios, we are going to assume what are the resources need, what are the outcomes that will happen. Likewise, we are going to predict, we are going to plan. Then the final one is workload characterization. Here we are going to map out the workflow and processes involved in delivering the product or services. And we are going to identify potential bottlenecks or capacity constraints. So here, just remembering these capacity techniques is enough for you at this level. Now let's see the capacity planning process. First one is we have to understand the current capacity. So this current capacity can be identified by raising these questions. What projects and what people do we currently have under the management? At present, we have to take account of the labor resource and how we are going to use this labor resource into different projects. So we have to understand our current capacity through this. Next one is we have to focus what extra time do people have to do more work. So if we have allocated employees, we have to see whether there is a space so we can use the remaining labor time for a different project. So we have to focus it. Then project future demand. So we have to see what are the availabilities of the successful projects, how many projects are in a good position, and the certainty of the project sales. So how we can certain whether they are able to generate sales. Certain means the assurance of the projected sales. Then when will be the project start? What skills they required for the project. Likewise, we have to project future demand, which means we have to focus the future sales. Then we have to identify where additional capacity would come from. So if we need more resources, how we are going to acquire them? So whether employees can work extra hours, whether they have to develop new skills for these projects. And if we are unable to do both of them, whether we are able to hire more people. And again, we have to assess the risk. Here, they have to focus whether the people burn out if we load in more work. So if we know that most of the people are unable to take the risk, unable to face the stress as well. So if we pressurize them, whether they be able to bear it up. If they are unable to bear it up, what will happen? They will leave the organization. Then the labor turnover will be higher. At the same time, if the stress level will be gone up due to the people burden out, then they may not work happily. If the employee satisfaction is not there, then it is failure of the company to achieve the HR planning as well as to obtain the maximum output level. And what will happen if we don't meet the demand? So sometimes to work at late hours, they may require OT. But if we are failed to provide the OT, what will happen? Whether they are going to bear it up, whether they will leave the organization, whether they are going to start a union action. So we have to focus and we have to assess every aspect of the risk through this capacity planning. Now let's see a clear steps of this capacity plan. First one is, as I mentioned you earlier, we have to estimate the future capacity requirement. Then we have to evaluate the existing capacity. Then we have to identify what are the possible alternatives we can do. Then we have to conduct financial analysis through ratios. Then we have to analyze key qualitative issues, which means what are the risks we are going to face. Then we have to select a particular option. Just one alternative we have to select. Finally, we have to implement the chosen alternative, the selected alternative. And finally, we have to monitor the results. So we are starting with the estimation of future capacity requirement. Then we are going to evaluate what we have right now. Then we are going to identify how to fill the gap based on different alternatives. Then we are going to do the ratio analysis, sensitivity analysis, and all the financial analysis for that. Then we are going to assess not only the financial aspects, we are going to see what are the qualitative aspects as well. Then by assessing everything, we are going to select one option. Then after selecting the option, we are going to implement it. After implementing, we are going to monitor the results. So these are the steps of the strategic capacity planning. Now let's see what are the determinants of effective capacity. The capacity will be depend on the facilities, product and service factors, process factors, human factors, operational factors, supply chain factors, as well as external factors. Uh, okay, I will repeat it again. So when it comes to facility, facility means the factory. So here the factory means it includes the size. Size of the factory means we can create a small factory. We can have a factory with different floors and we can enlarge it. We can expand it. Sometimes the expansion may be limited, right? So if there is a three-phase line going above the factory, then the limitation of the floors may be there due to the high power extension line, right? So sometimes if we are located the factory next to the beach, then there is a provision of expansion due to the government rules, right? So when we are locating a factory, we have to focus on the design as well. Then the location. So in the location, we are going to focus on the transportation cost. So transportation cost two types. First, we have to take the raw materials for the organization. When we are taking the import raw materials, it's easier if we are located next to a port or an airport. So if we are located a factory far away from the city, far away from the urban areas, then there is a distance to market. So if the distance is higher, we have to incur large amount of money for the transportation cost. If we are located closer to the city, then the storage cost as well as the transportation cost may be lesser. And the labor. So here the labor, just not the number of labor. The quality of the labor also important. So if we want a skilled labor, we have to locate it next to the urban area to acquire the skilled labor force effectively. But if we want to take the larger number of employees, which is unskilled, but we can train them with the learning curve, then it's better to locate the factory when there are ample of labor supply. So that's why most of the garment factories are located in the rural areas because they can acquire the employees easily. And if they are unable to acquire the employees, what they have to do and they have to provide a staff transportation facility. Sometimes this may incur additional cost. Then energy sources. Energy sources in the sense here, it's focusing on the electricity. So you know that in Sri Lanka, we are going for hydroelectricity. So, and here in Sri Lanka, we have this thermoelectricity as well. So, if we have located the factory in a rural area because of some chemical reactions or if something happened in the factory, then we are going for a rural area. If we are going for the rural area, if we don't have the infrastructure to facilitate the energy source, then what we have to do, we have to create our own energy source. Sometimes wind power has to be taken, sometimes solar power has to be taken. That may incur additional cost. So when we are locating a factory, we have to focus on the energy sources as well. Then the layout. So here the layout, we know that there are 4 layouts. So depend on the layout, depend on the production, we have to select the layout. If not, the production flow may be disrupted due to the mismatch of the layout. Just imagine that we are going for a product layout. Product layout, different stages may be there. Ultimately, what we are going to deliver a product. But for a product layout, if I apply a process layout, in the process layout, different works are going to group together, then only they are going to do the production. If there are mismatches between these needs, then we can't work smoothly. Therefore, when we are creating a facility, we have to see what is the best layout for that particular facility or the factory. That's why most of the factories are going for hybrid mode. Then the environmental factors they have to focus. Heating, lighting, ventilation. So heating, you know that if we are located the factory next to the dry zone, then the heating is high. So they have to provide either air conditioning or fans. And if we are located the factory, right, in the North Pole or South Pole, then the lighting may be not there. So they have to give inbuilt lighting facility in the factory as well as the ventilation. So if a building fully covered, then there won't be any ventilation. So if we are using human resource, we have to focus on each and every area rather than the robotics. So now let's see the product and service factors. So when we have a similar products, then it's easy to produce the products with larger quantities. But if we have different products, then it's difficult to produce within a short span of time. That's why it's called, when the products are similar, the ability of the system to produce those items is generally much greater than with products that differ. Thus, a restaurant that offers a limited menu can usually prepare and serve meals at faster rate than restaurant with an extensive menu. Generally, the more uniform output, the more opportunities are there for standardization. Right? So this will give a greater capacity. If we are taking McDonald's, in McDonald's, you have different types of burgers. So what they are going to do, depending on your requirement, they are going to do the toppings, they are going to put the patty and they are going to deliver it. Since they have pre-made buns, it's much convenient them to deliver the product within a short span of time. As a result, the output also increases. But if you are going for Pizza Hut, depend on the customer requirement, even though the roti is there, what they are going to do, the toppings and layering may be differ. That's why sometimes it will take some time to deliver a product. Therefore, when we are focusing on the product and service factors, it's important to decide the product design as well as the product and service mix, which means 4 P's they have to focus. Now let's see the process factors. In the process factors, quantity capability is important determinant of capacity, but also its output quality. So we know that what we are going to do in the strategic capacity planning, what we are going to do is we are going to fulfill the future demand. Future demand is in quantity wise. But when we are going to satisfy the future demand, we have to satisfy it with the right quality. If we are failed to provide the quality, what will happen? There may be some time we have to spend for rework. There may be some time we need for the inspection. It is waste of time and money both. Just imagine if you are going for a garment factory, if you are going for a ready-made tailor, what will happen? If that ready-made tailor can give the product, right, which is fit for your body, fit for your requirement, then you can take the product and you can go with the satisfaction on your mind. What will happen if the tailor fail to provide the quality product? If the measurements are wrong, if the designing is wrong, what will happen? You have to do the rework. Again, you have to check for the quality, whether it's suitable for your body. Then the quality and quantity both matters in the production process factors. Hence, process improvement that increase the quality should be a part of effective capacity. Another process factor to consider is the time it takes to change over the equipment setting for different products or service. So just imagine you are given a linen product. Linen is easy to produce, right? Easy to stitch. But if you are given a satin fabric, what will happen? Then it's difficult for use the normal jockey machines. So they have to take another machine to use that particular fabric. If the tailor given a denim material, they can't use normal jockey machine which they have used earlier. They have to use a different machine to produce these denim related fabric products. So it will take some time. So when you are going to use different processes, you have to focus and you have to take into mind that equipment may be able to change and do the modifications easily. Therefore, quantity capabilities and quality capabilities are both important. So human factors involve the training, skill and experience requirement for the particular job. So here it will have a huge impact on the potential, which means the ability to produce and the actual output. So employee motivation have a key and very basic relationship with the effective capacity. Other factors such as absenteeism, labor turnover all affect the output rate as well. So here when we are going to acquire employee, For production, we have to see what is the job content, which means what is the job requirement. Then what is the job design? And we have to see what are the training and experience required for the particular job. Then if the employees are motivated, they will work more. If demotivated, what will happen? So we have to focus on the motivation aspect as well. Compensation means the salary level. This not only involve the basic salary, other allowances are also included. So we have to focus on the package which are given for the employee. And learning rates. We know that skilled employees have a higher learning rate than the unskilled employees. So they have to focus on that part well. Then absenteeism and labor turnover. If the employees are leaving the organization, then we have to hire some new employees and it will involve some time for training and development. At the same time, when there is high labor turnover, this have a significant impact on the human resource budget as well. So they have to focus on these aspects in the strategic capacity planning. Then the operational factors. So let's see operational factors. Scheduling problems may occur when an organization has differences in equipment capabilities among different pieces of equipment or differences in job requirement. So we know that when we are going to do the operations, we are going to schedule them. So when we are going to schedule them, there may be problems. We may assign X material for the production, but X material may not be there. Then they have to take another material to replace them. So there is a schedule problem there. Sometimes we may order a backhoe for a construction project. However, that particular backhoe may not work or it has been allocated for another project during that time. So we have to find another vehicle for that. And if we have assigned a particular machine specifically for a project, if the assigned machine is different from what we have required, then there may be scheduling problems. Therefore, differences in equipment capabilities, different equipments, different job requirement may cause scheduling problems. Inventory stockings, late deliveries, and acceptability of purchase materials, quality inspections, and control procedures can have a significant impact on the effective capacity. So we know that for a production, we have to store adequate materials. That is our safety stock. But if we fail to stock the relevant materials according to the adequate requirement or the minimum requirement, there may be operational problems. So production has to stop. Then we have to take account of when we are stocking the materials. Sometimes due to the bad weather conditions, disruptions in the traffic system, late deliveries may be there. That also have caused for operational issues in the factories. Sometimes the quality standards, we know that when we are going to purchase products, these are should be in line with the standards. You know, ISO 9000, those are quality standards. Other than that, particular product may be have local standard as well, such as SLS quality standards. So in that case, if they fail to fulfill those acceptable standards, there may be operational issues. So when we are taking materials on ad hoc basis, what we are going to do, we have to inspect the quality. That is a huge lump sum of money spent on the quality procedure. then these have significant impact on the efficiency as well. Then inventory storage of even one component of an assembled item can cause a temporary hold to assembly operation until a new component become available. Just imagine that I have shown you earlier, right? BMW mini vehicle assembling plant. So in that plant, just imagine we don't have a particular nut to fix the vehicle. Then what will happen if we don't have enough tools or the machines or the materials in the inventory? We have to stop the production. So the whole process of the production will have a significant impact of due to this shortage. And insufficient capacity in one area can affect overall capacity. So in the cutting section, we are going to cut 1,000 blocks. However, in the sewing section, we just have 10 employees, which is required 50 employees. Then they won't be able to make up the delivery parts. So they fail to sew all the materials which have been cut by the cutting department. Due to that, the packing employees has to wait until the finished good come to their operations. That's what they have to focus every aspect when it comes to operational factors. So it's include scheduling, material management, quality assurance, maintenance policies, equipment breakdowns. So they have to take account these factors when it comes to operational factors in capacity planning. Now let's see supply chain factors. Supply chain factors must be taken into account in capacity planning, and is substantial capacity change are involved. Key questions include what impact will be change have on suppliers, warehousing, transportation, and distributors. If there are issues in the supply chain, then what will happen to the suppliers? Whether we have enough warehouse, whether the transportation facility is adequate to deliver the goods or take the raw materials. What will happen to the distributors? They have to wait more time because of these issues. So these questions we can face. If capacity is increased with these elements of the supply chain, we'll be able to handle this increase. So we are currently, because of the current capacity, we have planned to produce 1,000 quantities or 1,000 units. How now we are going to plan to increase it to 2,000? Even though we have planned it to increase to 2,000, whether we will be able to handle this, whether we have enough raw materials, whether suppliers are there to deliver it within the required time. So we have to focus each and every aspect of the supply chain with regard to this. And on the other hand, if capacity is to be decreased or reduced, what is the impact of loss of business? Have on these element of the supply chain. So if we are going to reduce, then we have to cut down the orders for suppliers. Then we have to utilize the space of the warehouse for another activity. If not, we have to spend unwanted money on non-value activities for the warehousing. So we have to focus these parts as well. And it must be taken into account in capacity planning if substantial capacity changes are involved. So every time we have to think what are the factors we have to consider if the capacity is changed, and what is the impact on the supply chain factors based on these changes. Now let's see the external factors. Defined quality and performance standards can restrict management's opinion for increasing and utilizing capacity. Union contract limit the number of hours and type of work an employee may do have an impact on the organizational capacity. Product standards, safety regulations, union actions, pollution control standards are the other factors which may have significant impact on the organizational capacity plan. Now, let's see what is capacity flexibility. Capacity flexibility is the ability to rapidly increase or decrease the product level or the ability to shift rapidly from one product to service to another, which means we have to be flexible to change the production level and we have to have the ability to change the production design or the requirement to the customer. It comes from the plan, process, and workers or from strategies that use the capacity of other organization. So the flexibility comes from the plan means the factory itself. We may able to change the factory layout. We should be able to change the factory inventory handling systems, the processes, then the employees, and the strategies to have this capacity flexibility. Here, in the capacity flexibility, there are three important parts we have to focus. The first one is we have to have the flexible plant or the factory. If we have a flexible plant, then we will be able to quickly adapt to changes. And there will be no changes over time. That's why it's called zero changes over time because we are flexible, nothing to change, just the adaptation is there. Second one is there should be flexible processes. There must be flexible manufacturing system and it should be simple. At the same time, the processes should be simple. When it's simple, it's easy to set up the equipment. And the final one is flexible workers should be there. Workers should be able to switch from one kind of task to another quickly. You know, when there are specialization, then it's difficult to change. But if the employees have different types of skill varieties, then they can easily switch from one kind of task to another one. And we have to incorporate multiple skills and cross-training in order to achieve that. So in the capacity flexibility, three types of things you have to focus. You have to have a flexible plan, flexible processes, at the same time, flexible workers to have this. Now let's see what are the considerations in changing capacity. When we want to change the capacity, what are the things we have to focus? Here we have to have a system balance. So maintaining system balance is important, right? So here similar capacities desired at each operations has to be taken into account. Then we have to focus what are the bottlenecks or limitations. Then we have to manage them through the operations. Then we have to see what is the frequency of capacity additions. Whether we are going to adding capacity more frequent or less frequent. Here we have to see cost of upgrading too frequently and what is the cost of upgrading too infrequently. Frequently means the occurrence is higher. Infrequency is at random times only we are going to add the capacity. Then what is the cost behind it? We have to focus on. Then external sources of capacity. Sometimes if we don't have the capacity to produce inside, we can outsource them. Or we can share the capacity with another factory. Then what are the options available? Then decreasing capacity. If we are going to reduce the capacity of the factory or the organization, then how we are going to temporarily reduct it? Or are we going to permanently reduction it? So layoff employees, layoff materials, shutdown operations has to be considered when we are going to change the capacities. Now let's see the frequency versus infrequency in capacity expansion. So you can see when the volume increases, capacity frequency expansion is higher. And when the time frame shows that when the time expansion, we are going to expand the factory. In the simply terms, this diagram shows when we are time passing the production, when we are going to increase our production in future, then the years are going high. At the same time, volume also increases. When the number of years in the factory, the volume also increases. Due to satisfy these volume changes, we have to add the capacity. So we are going to add the capacity here. So here, this line shows that capacity level and infrequent expansion. Frequent expansion means you can see gradually we are going to increase it frequently. We know it, we can predict it. But infrequent expansion means on ad hoc basis, we are going to increase the capacity. When there is ad hoc basis expansion, we have to focus what is the equipment requirement, what are the factory requirements, what is the labor force. We have to forecast and foresee each and every aspects of the capacity plan. Now let's see what is the capacity analysis. Capacity analysis is a method used by organizations to determine their maximum output level or how much they can produce or deliver with the available resources, including manpower, machinery, and materials.